Hey everyone, it is time for the October wrap-up. Don't worry, it's not going to be that long. Half of these are graphic novels, and there are a couple of books that I did not finish, and then I added other ones in to make up for it, so this is a little deceiving right here. It's messy hair day, but that's okay because sometimes you just have to film a video right after you work out and then go do a million other things with the rest of your day, and that's just life. So it is what it is, but I'm really excited to tell you everything I read because there were new favorites. There were absolutely new favorites in here, and I returned to Pierce Brown this month, which was unsurprisingly an amazing time. Alright, let's do this. There was a lot of sci-fi this month because I was finishing up the last month of my super specific TBR, which was women writing sci-fi. And then I didn't finish one of them. And so then I subbed in this. Wait, let me start with the one I didn't finish then. Organization. Okay, The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I was pretty excited for this one. I've never heard of this author. I've never heard of this book. It was supposed to be this really layered story about traveling to alternate universes, and basically you can only go to universes where you are already dead. And so our protagonist, what's her name? Kara, she is dead on 372 worlds, which is a good chunk of the worlds that we travel to in this book. So she's very, very valuable. And I was really excited for that, but it read kind of dry for me. I didn't make it that far. I don't think I actually gave this one the full 100 pages because I was just very bored. I was totally unattached to Kara, and that's a huge problem for me. I can't do books where the character building is not right for me. It's such a complex story that I'm not going to go through that if I don't even care about the person that it's happening to. I think for me, I'm finding that I love sci-fi because I grew up watching it. However, I'm finding that a lot of sci-fi reads very dry, and I feel like it relies on the setting. I feel like it relies on how much people who love the sci-fi genre love the nerdiness of it and the space side of things and the technology and the action, and a lot of the authors neglect the more sentimental side of things that I need, like learning details about the characters so that I care about what they're going through. And I just feel like some of it feels a bit soulless, which is a bummer. So I think if you like sci-fi in general, this would be a really good one to try. But definitely if you're trying to get into sci-fi, this is one that I would not recommend. And I feel bad saying this because I feel bad not recommending any book because of how much work goes into a book, but I just think sci-fi can be so amazing, as will be proven by my next book. But this one, I would hate for anybody to be like, yeah, let me try sci-fi, let me give it a shot, and this is what they tried, because in my opinion, this is not the better end of sci-fi. This does not exemplify what sci-fi can be when it is the whole package. So since I didn't finish The Space Between Worlds, I went back to Pierce Brown because I knew that I would love this book, because this is the first book of the second half of the Red Rising saga, which is a 6-book saga of 2 trilogies. And the first book of this saga is my favorite book of all time. Pierce Brown is my favorite author. One of my favorite characters of all time is in this series, and it did not disappoint me. It's a whirlwind. It is a freaking whirlwind. I actually have a new favorite character. Not favorite, but like one of my favorites. Actually, no, this book has changed a lot because there's one character that I struggled to connect with and fully appreciate in the first trilogy, and I was frustrated by that because I didn't understand quite why we weren't getting there. And now I am fully in love and super attached to them, which is gonna make things difficult because everybody's on opposite sides of things now, and I'm scared for the other 2 books in the trilogy. I'm terrified. Like, somebody I love is gonna die. At least one person. I just hope that I have one of my favorites left by the end of this, because he is not scared of killing people off in this series at all. And I tend to pick favorite characters that are the first to die. Watching Game of Thrones, who do you think my favorite characters were? Ned Stark and Khal Drogo. Which, like, why was Khal Drogo a favorite? Literally just had a crush on him. But obviously, that didn't end well for me. I don't like my chances, but I loved this book. I loved every second of it. I can't say much without spoiling it. That's the thing. It's really hard to talk about these books in detail because they're so action-packed. There's so much drama, but it's all very important. This is not petty stuff. It's massive, and just try this series. Honestly, just try this series. Basically, this is a giant space opera. In the first part of the saga, there are castes in this society, and the lower castes have been screwed over royally by the higher castes, and they found out, and they're retaliating. And first part of the trilogy is more like how that all got started, and this is, now it's in progress. How is that affecting things for everybody? And how is it going to end? I do not have any predictions on how this will end. I have no idea, because I know by the time the second book is done, I'm going to be in a whole different place than I am at the end of this book. That's just how it is. There's no predicting. The first trilogy was all from the point of view of our protagonist, Darrow. The second trilogy has Darrow's perspective, but it also has, I think, 3 other characters' perspectives, and 2 of them are new characters. One of them is like a side character from the first trilogy, and ooh, and I have feelings on that side character. Not a fan. Not a fan at all. Somebody message me who has read this. I need to talk about it. I need to talk about it. So many thoughts, so many feelings. That's why I love these books. Like, they get me worked up. I know Pierce has been working for a while on getting this turned into a really, really, really well done series, which is why he's being picky and taking his time and making sure it's done right. That series, the day it comes out, will destroy me. It will have me in tears. It will have me cackling. I cannot wait. Okay, let's get another DNF out of the way. This was the only other novel that I DNF'd, and I predicted that I would DNF it. I tried not to, but not that hard. And it's The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. And this is one that I don't think I was that drawn to when I heard people talk about it for a while. And then I don't remember who it was, but there was one booktuber who just talked about it in the right way that made me impulse buy it. And yeah, I'm sure there's something in here that I would like, but I just can't be bothered. This was very dry and drawn out for me. I mean, the first few pages that I read, I'm sorry, but I think I was rolling my eyes because the descriptors of the parade or festival or whatever it was that was happening were just so unnecessarily long. Like, just kind of kept describing the same types of things over and over and over again. And then we were like 2 pages in, and all I had was descriptors of a festival. Had no idea what was going on. Didn't know why I wanted to hear about this festival. Kept reading on. I think I read maybe 2 chapters. And that's when I was like, yeah, I just don't care. And I wish I did. And I know some people absolutely love this book, but it is widely admitted that this does read kind of like a textbook. And that's very difficult for me. It's not really something that I want to go through, is a dry 600-page book. Very much not for my ADD brain. And I met who I'm assuming are both of the main characters, and I just didn't care. Yeah, just didn't care, which is a bummer. Like, I never want to DNF a book. I never want to not like a book. But I know in my gut when it's not going to turn around for me. And I, from the first page, could tell that this just was not going to be a good match. So don't knock until you try it. You know, try things for yourself. People love this book. Some people. But I think that you need to be the type that is willing to go through slow pacing and still be happy with a book. And I'm not. I'm just not that person. And to be honest, I can't even really tell you what that story is supposed to be about because I learned nothing from the chapters that I read, and the synopsis always seemed kind of vague to me when I was reading about it. So I don't know, look up the synopsis and see if it makes sense to you, but it seemed vague to me, and then the whole thing that I read seemed vague and just detached. So hard DNF for me. Next we have Heap House by Edward Carey. That's not the front. Okay, so this is gonna be brief because Edward Carey is my author of the month. I read Little by him a couple months ago and I loved it. It was so much fun and it was so weird and interesting and quirky. And this was also weird and quirky. It honestly gave me Series of Unfortunate Events sort of vibes where it's just like everything is weird and that's just normal to everybody in the book. And that is creeping me out. And that's kind of what it was like in here. The whole world is so weird. It's kind of, I always use the same word to describe him, which is why I do like him, because he is like, he very much knows his voice. He knows who he is, he knows his style, he knows how he wants to write. His books, his characters, they are dark, but not in a horror way. Sort of like a Tim Burton type of thing. Just like dark, quirky, interesting, just unusual, but in a very curious way. Curious. Just very peculiar. We follow two main characters, Claude and Lucy. And Claude is an ironmonger, which is the family that lives in Heap House. And they're very much like, sort of like the purebloods in Harry Potter, where they are above everybody else because they are pure ironmonger. There's no other, like nobody married into their bloodline, and they rule the house and they live in the upper levels and blah, 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 blah. And then Lucy is an ironmonger, but she's not a pure blood ironmonger. And she is amazing. Lucy's amazing. I love her character a lot because she is me and I am her. And she's a stubborn little twerp. She does what she wants. She is not playing by the rules. She is told how to behave and she ignores all of it. She ignores all of it. And I love her so much. It's kind of hard to summarize. But in short, Claude Ironmonger, this kid, he can hear all of the random objects around Heap House, which is the name of this house. It's just filled with junk. It's just filled with random objects everywhere. Like a hoarder's dream. He can hear all of them. They all say names to him and he doesn't know why. And Lucy, she's just the newest ironmonger servant and she's exploring the house because she doesn't care and she's not going to stay in the basement and she wants to see what's going on here and potentially leave if people are going to be so rude all the time. Eventually, Claude and Lucy meet each other and they kind of start asking questions together, and you slowly but surely learn the secrets and history of Heap House, why Claude can hear all the items, and everything that comes after that. I actually ended up switching to the audiobook for this, and I'm so happy I did. I highly recommend doing this on audiobook because the narrators are so good. They're so good. Because they're British and they do so many different British accents and British stereotypes for the different voices of the different people. And they do a lot of different voices and they do an amazing job. There's a man and a woman, and I think they're my favorite narrators to date. Yeah, I was really impressed with them, and it made it a lot more fun to listen to because the specific accents just immersed you in the setting a lot more than, for me at least, if I would have been reading it. So it's a really fun book. It is a children's book, but it's pretty detailed. If you like Series of Unfortunate Events, I think you would really like this. And yeah, highly recommend doing it with the audiobook because it was fantastic. Back to sci-fi. I finally read Parable of a Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This book is not what I was expecting at all. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. I just want to start off by saying if you do not like gory books, this is not the book for you. This book is dark. It is dark and gory and detailed and twisty and sad and brutal. It's very like Walking Dead vibes, but there's not zombies. You never find out why the world is the way it is in this book, but everybody is just fending for themselves. There's not much food or water around, and there's a new crazy drug running around that turns people into like complete savages. Basically, we're following our protagonist Lauren and just kind of what it is like to live being raised in a world where, gosh, you could just be attacked in the middle of the night from an outsider who made it through the fence and wants to steal your clothes, steal your money, steal your guns, steal your water. It really is a brutal, brutal world, and it's super interesting because the adults in this book remember what the world was like before, but the kids don't know. They don't understand what things were like, and they're not able to compare. So there's just kids like going out learning how to shoot in their free time because they need to know how to defend themselves, and it's pretty wild. There's a religious element to this, which I'm sure is a huge part of what made this book so famous. I didn't like that part, but it's not because I think it was not well done. I think it was done really well. I just have a past with religion, and I don't necessarily love reading about stuff like that. And I especially didn't like how it got at the end. The religion comes a lot more into play towards the end of the book, and I just don't like how it developed. Again, I think it was well done, perfectly done, but I still didn't enjoy reading it because it was just too real. Overall, I liked this book. I don't love it as much as I expected to based on the pedestal that this book is on. And that's not me saying that this book should not be on a pedestal, because it's a great, great book. It's just like, it's not a fun book at all. And I don't think that so far I have not found it enjoyable to read books that are mostly about darkness and violence and just surviving, but not being able to like live happily. I just don't really want to spend my time reading about things being so completely bleak. So it's just not the greatest match for me, but I still had a really good time reading it because you want to see how the journey goes for this character. So really great book. Just think about what stories you enjoy reading before you decide to pick this up, and most definitely check the trigger warnings because there's going to be a lot. I finally read A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, and this book has a lot of people's hearts, and that made me very, very excited to read it, and it was a really good time. So we have Dex here, and they are a tea monk. Basically, they set out a table with tea and wait for people to come over with their troubles. They make them a tea that is appropriate for their problem, and they just listen. They just listen to them, and they just support them and give them any thoughts or advice that they have on what the person is feeling or going through at the time, which don't I wish that we had that. So Dex is feeling kind of unfulfilled despite having pursued a new job that they thought would make them very happy. They thought that that was the issue, that they needed to become a tea monk and help people, and that they would feel fulfilled after doing that. And when they don't, they kind of try something random and they meet a robot. And you find out what the backstory is, why there's a robot there. I'm not going to get into it, but they end up kind of wandering around together and chatting about things and kind of discovering their differences and learning about each other. And it's just a really ingenious way of exploring the differences between people, the differences in mindset, in how people approach life in very different ways, and that doesn't mean that one way is right and one way is wrong. They're just different, and who would have thought to explore it with a tea monk and a robot wandering through the wilderness together. And it's really, really well done. It's so thoughtful, but it's also so cozy, so it just makes it so easy to take everything in, and I am really curious what's going to happen in book 2. But this is also a very short little guy. It's under 150 pages, and the second one is also very, very short. Highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. Next book is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. This is going to be short because this is my favorite book of the month, so I'm going to make a video about it on its own. This is the book that just like really grabbed my heart and holds it eternally. So Ove is a really cranky old man. Really cranky, like looking for things to be cranky about throughout his whole day. All day, every day. And we basically just follow him around in his day-to-day life, and slowly we find out things about his past, and we discover why he is the way he is. And you begin to sympathize with him and empathize with him and fall in love with him and understand him, and you root for him, and it's so good. And there's a cat. I just don't want to say much until I do my actual video on it, but there's a reason that this book is getting a lot of hype right now. It is so endearing. It is so real. It's so easy to connect to, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I have 3 more books by this author saved on my Everand because they have a lot of his books on there. The only problem I have is choosing which one to read next. 5 stars. You should read it. Please read it. It's so good. So I also listened to the book Cultish by Amanda Montell, and it was supposed to be a buddy read with me and Gabby, whose brand spanking new YouTube channel is in the description below. Please go give her some love because she's a brilliant mind, and she's a writer, and she's making a channel about writing for people who are not published but are just like going through the process of learning how to write a book and figuring out their voice, and it's going to be amazing. She got through it really quickly because she's very consistent, and I did not. I was super delayed, and so I kind of messed up the buddy read, but I did finish it finally, and it was okay for me. I felt like it was super disorganized and discombobulated, and the pacing was all over the place, and that all was so wonky for me that I had a really hard time getting into it and truly focusing. Amanda also did a lot, and I mean a lot, of bringing up a topic and then saying, but we'll look into more of that in chapter 6. And she does it throughout the whole book, and she does it so many times, and I'm like, just either talk about it now or don't bring it up. Please. Like that was sort of became a pet peeve of mine. I think that like I loved the idea of this book. I just don't like how it was executed. I did learn from it, and I did really enjoy parts of it. I just had a really hard time settling into it. You talk about kind of the psychology behind cults and cult leaders and how they're able to reel people in, and I do appreciate that they talk about the people who end up in cults or just end up at SoulCycle, different level of cult. No offense to anybody, okay? I do Peloton rides. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I don't know. It was just, we were talking about the psychology of cults like Jonestown, and then we went to MLMs, and then we went to Scientology, and then we went to SoulCycle, and I feel like I would have done better if there were different shorter books about the different ones, because to me, hearing about like Jonestown and stuff is just a whole different thing than SoulCycle. And I think I want to learn about both of them, and I think they both need to be talked about, but it was just too much bouncing around. It just made it really hard for me to focus because just too many different vibes in one book. Gabby liked this book a lot more than I did. I don't know. I love the idea. It just didn't land for me. The last novel I read was a buddy read with Melanie from A Dark Corner of the Library, and we both loved this book. It is Slewfoot by Brahm, and wow, this was an adventure. I wasn't expecting anything specific, but it definitely wasn't this. First of all, this is like a weird book size, and it intimidated me at first because that's just a lot on one page, but I actually really flew through this, especially after the first probably 50 to 75 pages. That's when I read most of it in one day, actually. And there are illustrations of the characters in here, which is pretty cool. It's so creepy. It's so creepy, and it's so eerie and dark and mysterious and weird, but it's very folkloric, and that was very fun. We are following Abatha. Abatha is a girl who was sold into a marriage to a Puritan. This is already terrifying. And yeah, we are in Puritan society, people. we are there, and it is infuriating, and it is terrifying, and it is a lot. This is one of the most relatable characters I have read yet. We're the same person. I would do exactly what she does in this book if I was in this situation. Needless to say, I would not have done well among the Puritans, and she gets into a lot of trouble in this book too. So pretty much there are things in the forest around Abatha's house, and they start to make themselves known, and she gets tangled up in this whole like underworld with many different creatures from different places, and they all have different intentions. They all want different things. She's involved with them in different capacities, and she's also juggling her struggles with the Puritans and with managing a farm, and I don't want to spoil anything, but this book is really good in the sense that you get very invested, and obviously all of the Puritans are super infuriating, and you just want somebody to tell them off the whole time, which is what she's trying to do, but she's also trying to like watch out for herself. So you're on the edge of your seat because there are so many villains in this book, and you just want justice. And Abatha is just holding out against everybody. Ugh. So the weird thing, the crazy thing is Melanie said to me in an email, I don't know why, but this is unlike anything I've ever read. And my jaw dropped when I read that because I felt exactly the same way. I cannot pinpoint it. I don't know what it is about his storytelling, but it has a very distinct feel to it. And it's something that I've never experienced before. And I enjoyed it. I haven't actually looked up what else Brom has written, but I would definitely try another book by him. I think I ended up giving this, right now I'm leaning towards 4.5 stars. Melanie said 5 stars for her. And my friend Gabby is gonna read this book, I think. It's on her TBR. I don't know how soon she'll actually read it, but I have a feeling she's gonna like it, if not just for the fact that she's a writer, so she analyzes things in a very different way, and I want her to read it so she can tell Melanie and myself why we felt differently about this book than any other book ever. Because I have a feeling she'll be able to figure it out. I had saved this book for the end of the month so that it would be my Halloween read, and it was the perfect book for that because honestly, the books that I picked up for spooky season this year, they did not go well at all. I had pretty much terrible luck with all vampire books except for Vampires of El Norte, which is a favorite book of mine now. But aside from that, I had terrible luck. And I was really wanting this last one to be good, and it was great. So thank you, Brom, for ending things on a good note for me. I definitely recommend this book if you like witchy books, if you like dark historical books, if you like just eerie vibes overall. The vibes are so strong from the very beginning in this book. Like, you feel very, very immersed in all of these scenes. Your emotions are involved. It's really good. It is definitely worth the hype. Okay, I'm moving on to the graphic novels that I read, so stick around because graphic novels are great. First is actually a manga, and it's One Piece. It feels like so long ago that I read this. This month has felt very, very, very long. Oof, it has been a long month. Anyways, One Piece is a very long manga series that has been adapted into an anime series and also a Netflix series. I'm not sure how long the Netflix series is. I'm not going to watch it yet because I don't know how many books it covers, and I want to just form opinions based on the book before I have actors and cinema affect things in my brain. This is 5 stars. I read most of this in one day. It is so much fun. It's such a good friend group, which is what I had heard about it. All the characters are weird. They're so weird. Like, this is imagination. This book is imagination. It's just weird and fun. And to me, that makes a great book. I can't think of a character that I didn't like, even if it was a villain. Like, the villains are so out of this world. The villains are crazy. It's over the top. This book is over the top for sure. I don't even know how they would have managed to do this on Netflix, and I'm a little bit scared to watch it because some of this stuff just doesn't make sense to try to put into film, but they did it. So we're basically following Monkey D. Luffy, who's a kid who dreams of being the biggest, baddest pirate on the seas, but he's too little. But he's so freaking determined. He's stubborn as heck. He is so stubborn. And it's about him trying to get a group together for a pirate ship that he doesn't even have, and it's great. It's just nothing but fun. You should definitely give it a try. It's the first manga I've ever read, and golden. 5 stars. My friend Adam actually ended up reading it with me, and we were gonna do start a manga book club together, but we loved One Piece so much that I think it's gonna end up just being a One Piece book club, which is great. The other manga I tried is Happiness by Shuzo Oshimi. I DNF'd it super fast because sexism. Yep, I hated this, and I said I wouldn't use that word on this channel. However, let me show you why I don't feel bad saying that at all. This is why. Within the first 5 pages, we have boys telling other boys to look up a schoolgirl's skirt. Then we zoom in more, and then we just go back to thinking about it some more, and I just don't care. So that was this. I read 10 pages and want it out of my house now. That was definitely the worst part of my reading month, for sure, that book. Oh my god. Saga, however, was fantastic, and I didn't expect it to be anything but, because everybody loves this series. You are following basically like 5 seconds after this woman gives birth, people show up with guns and try to take the parents, and it's madness. And they're just trying to make their escape with a newborn baby. And it's just about them trying to get away. It's being told in the voice of their daughter. And you meet some other characters who help them along the way in very unexpected ways. This is super creative. This is super, super creative. I am not going to tell you about the villains or the side characters because honestly, seeing them and learning about them for myself was so much fun. I don't want to take that away from anybody, but it's weird. It's action-packed. It's also sentimental. It's just kind of everything in one package, and I highly recommend this. I'm definitely going to read more of it. So then I read Beautiful Darkness by Fabian Vellman, and I'm so sorry. I have no idea how to say this name, and it's got the little dots over the E, and I don't know what that does to the pronunciation, so I'm not even gonna try. I can't say I understand what the moral of the story was, and I want to find out, and I feel a little bit dumb for not understanding, but I don't. I liked it for like the first quarter because the art is really, really cool. Where is a non-spoiler page? Okay. Yeah, the art is gorgeous. It is super dark and twisty, which is fine. I just didn't understand why. I didn't understand why. Then I was just reading it to finish it and hoping that I would understand more at the end, which I didn't. And to be fair, like, I'm not the greatest at picking up on hidden meanings in things. So maybe most people would get it, and I just don't. That is very, very possible. I don't regret reading it at all. But I will say I feel like the second half I kind of just finished it to finish it. The last one I'm going to talk about is Donuts and Doom. I'm just going to start pointing to names. So this is a story about a witch and a girl who works at a donut shop and how they meet and their story together. This is super cute. The witch has a snake named Stanley, and that's pretty adorable. The girl who works at the donut shop is also trying to get her big break with her best friend. They're a band, and she basically kind of has a fight with this witch at the beginning, and they hate each other for a second, but then they run into each other again and things happen from there. I think this is a really good one if you like graphic novels that are more on the like simple, fun, comic strippy vibes, and you don't need it to be like super detailed. And I don't know, the pacing was just weird for me in this. The pacing was super weird for me because I feel like the ending was extremely rushed, and I guess I would have liked a little bit more detail on some things. I liked it, I had a lot of fun with it, but there are things that I would like to see done differently, I guess. But it was super fast to read and it was a good time, and Stanley the Snake is the best. So that was everything for this month. I guess I got through a lot more than I thought I did. This month has just seemed so long that I felt like I didn't get quite as much reading done as previously, and now I'm saying that's not true. It's just been a month, everybody. It just has. We all have those. But I am really happy that I found a couple new favorites. Absolutely so excited to read more from Frederick Backman and continue my Pierce Brown religious journey. Next month is going to be a lot more random. It's going to be a little bit all over the place, which I'm excited for because that's the way my brain just naturally is. And I'm just going to take it day by day and grab whatever book is calling to me at the time. I've started with Crying in H Mart and what's the other one? Oh, Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. So I've got some intimidating books coming up and some sad books, but then some really like fun YA fantasy to balance it out. But for now, that's all I've got. I hope everybody's doing great. I'll see you in the next video.